All right, let's get started. In the last class, we stopped here, right? So, who wants to volunteer? How much you got for problem 1, 2, and 3? Let's start with problem 1. So, what should be the inputs for these 4 variables? How much is n? Yes, 18 because it's a 9-year bond, semi-annual compounding, right? Discount rate? 2.5 because 5% APR semi-annual, right? Payment 30. 6% on 1,000 is 60. Semi-annual payment 30. 1,000 face value. How much price you got? Price 1,071.77 cents. Everyone have this number? Problem 2. What is the price of the bond if the yield rose to 7%? Same inputs, that will become 3.5, right? All else same inputs. N is 18, payment 30, face value 1,000. But I over Y should be 3.5, right? And the new price should be, I believe, around 934. Right? Around something. What is the current yield on the bond if the YTM is 7%? From the last class, we know that current yield is basically annual coupon divided by price. So price at 7%. Annual coupon is 60, price at 7% is 934. Right? What is the current yield then? Anyone having a different number? All good? Okay. So now we're gonna move on to chapter 8, stock valuation. So move on. Right, so what? So in the last class, we talked about bond, right? So we say that bond is a debt instrument, right? Corporations issue bonds when they need capital. And we said that if you invest in bond, they're going to give you a fixed claim, not ownership, right? But when you talk about stock, this is also an instrument used to raise capital. But when we talk about stock, if you invest in stock, how it is different from investing in bonds? You have to be careful. Stock are basically two types: common stock, preferred stock. Common stock is basically giving you ownership interest on the corporations. And if we want to talk about some characteristics of common stock, it will give you voting rights. Voting rights means for any kind of decision making, you have a right to say what to do. For any kind of decision making for the corporations, you have a right to say. You can elect board of directors, and those people will work for the best interest of you. So voting rights, you have voting rights. Proxy voting. So basically, most of the cases, common stock comes with proxy voting. The proxy voting means, let's say, you do not have time to cast the vote, but you can delegate your right to someone else, maybe your broker, maybe your agent, so that that entity, individual, or person will cast the vote for you. So most of the common stock comes with proxy voting. Classes of stock. Common stock in general would come with two classes. Class A, Class B. There is no difference except number of voting rights. So let's say Class A is trying to tell you, if you have one stock, you have one voting right, one. For each stock, you have one voting rights. Class B may tell you, if you have one stock, you have 10 voting rights. All else same, all else same. You will get the equal dividend, you will earn or enjoy equal earnings, price growth, everything is same. Only difference, number of voting rights. Sometimes corporations want to issue different class of stocks. The motivation is they will sell Class B maybe to people whom they want to have more voting rights, to have better control on the corporations. That's the only thing. But Class A, Class B, everything is same except number of voting rights. Other rights are same. Share proportionally declare dividends. So if they declare dividends, everyone will enjoy similar way, and everyone will enjoy some proportional dividends on the investments. Share proportionally in remaining assets during liquidation. So basically, during liquidation, common stock investors are the one who will get priority the list. So let's say any corporations bankrupted or failed, they have to be liquidated. In those cases, bond will be paid first, then preferred stock, then common stock. Whatever left, they will share proportionally. Let's say I own 10 stocks, all of you own one stock. That means proportionally in liquidation, I will get more, you will get less. So that's the word, proportional. But you have to be careful. Bondholders will be paid first, then preferred stock, then common stock holders. And then depending on their number of stocks investors, they will get proportionally all of them. Preemptive rights, very important. Preemptive rights. So let's say one corporations issued some stock today. Today is March 23, right? March 23, 2023, right? And we know that corporations last forever, right? So they will do business for next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years, right? 5 years later, they may need more capital for expansion, for growth, right? If this is true, they will have to issue more stocks, maybe, if they don't want bond, right? Let's say March 23, 20, 33, 10 years later. They need more money for the capital. They need to issue more stock, right? That is called reissue. So the first issue, when any corporations issue the stock for the very first time, that is called initial issue or initial public offering, IPO. Initial issue or initial public offering. But going forward, if any corporations issue again, that is called reissue. So now going forward, there are different options that the corporations can do. They can issue to all, or they can offer existing shareholders first. Hey, I'm going to issue again. Do you want the stocks? Yes or no? If yes, you can maintain the current proportional holdings. Let's say here they issued only 10 stocks to 10 people. That means 1 people got 1 stock, right? So everyone owns 10% of the corporation, right? Here they want to issue 20 stocks. If initial issue comes with preemptive rights, that means they have to offer these 10 people first. And they have to offer, do you want the existing proportional holdings? Yes or no? That means each people will be offered 10%, which is 2 stocks. Right? 10% 2 stocks. If it has preemptive rights. So the idea is when any stock has preemptive rights, that means existing shareholders will be offered first for any sort of reissue. That do you want to maintain existing proportional holdings or not? If they say yes, all those reissue will be gone to them. If they say no, then we will go on to new investors. But if it doesn't have preemptive rights, corporations can choose whatever they want to do. They can just issue open. Anyone can participate. Makes sense? What is preemptive rights? So if you have preemptive rights as investors, for any additional reissues, you will be offered first. Questions? Now let's talk about a little bit about dividend characteristics for common stock. So we're still on common stock. Dividends is not a liability. Corporations can choose to pay dividend, corporations can choose not to pay dividend. It's not a liability. And if corporations do not pay dividends, it will not make them bankrupt. Now, dividend taxes. So dividend is not considered as a cost like interest. Interest is a cost because it's a fixed burden. So that's why interest is tax deductible. Corporations get tax benefits if they have bond, if they pay interest, but dividends are not. So they are not tax deductible. Now, being an investor, if you receive dividends, that is your personal income. Being an investor. Let's say Pfizer, this is one of the corporations that pays quarterly dividend, 4 times a year for very long period of time. very long period of time. If you invest in Pfizer, it's for sure each year you will get a certain amount of dividend, for sure. So if you're the investors of Pfizer corporations, you get dividend each year. This will be considered as your personal income. So depending on your taxable income tax bracket, you will be charged for tax on your dividend. Make sense? Now moving on. Preferred stock. If we say preferred stock, you can think about it is a hybrid kind of instruments in the middle of bond and stock. You will get fixed dividend each year, but you do not have voting rights. You do not have a lot of other characteristics like common stockholders, right? It's not kind of ownership, but you'll always get fixed dividend from owning a preferred stock. So if you want to talk about preferred stock dividends, it could have different characteristics. Very common characteristics is preferred stock dividend is fixed flat. If they pay you $1 each year, they'll keep paying you $1 forever. Very common characteristics. Sometime they can add a terms and conditions that there could be a growth in your preferred stock dividend, which is very rare in reality. Preferred stock dividends are mostly fixed, flat. Now, dividend payment. Preferred stockholder will be paid first, then common stockholder. Any dividend will go to preferred stockholder, then common stockholder. It's not a liability. And if corporations fail, most of the cases it will not lead to bankruptcy, because you can defer preferred stock forever. But most of the preferred stock comes with cumulative terms and conditions. Cumulative. What does it mean by cumulative? If they fail to pay this year, they will add this dividend to next year. So next year they will pay for 2 years. Or if they fail to pay dividend for 2 years, they will add these 2 years in the third year and pay for 3 years. So preferred stock dividends mostly accumulated. Very rare case, very rare case, it could be non-cumulative. That means if they fail to pay this year, it's gone. They will not pay you in upcoming years. And as we said, no voting rights. You cannot elect board members. You cannot cast your vote. You cannot make any decisions for the corporations. Questions: common stock, preferred stock. Good so far? Okay, now we'll move on to valuation. Valuation. When we say value of any corporation, or when you say value of any asset, any instrument, what does it mean? How can we define, how can we find the value of any asset in finance? Value. Think about bond valuation. What is a value? How can you find? How can you get value? Value. What is the value? How did you find the value of the bond today? We just did deal with the money, right? How did you find the value of the bond today? How? What we did to find the price of the bond today? So price means what should the value today, right? How did we get that? On the calculator, what we did? Of what? Absolutely. Value of any asset in finance. Present value of expected cash flows. That's it. For bond, coupon and face value, right? Present value of expected cash flow. So basically for stock valuation, common versus preferred. Common stock valuation can be done two ways. Absolute, relative. The absolute valuation means present value of expected cash flows. Two different approach. Dividend discount model, free cash flow model. For this class, we'll only do dividend discount model. If you take investment class, you will learn free cash flow model. So, present value of expected cash flows, which is basically dividends and future selling price. So we're going to do dividend discount model, and we basically do present value of expected dividends, and if we sell the stock in future, right? Present value of future selling. That is absolute valuation. Relative valuation. So relative valuation is basically estimated comparing similar corporations. So let's say we want to think about Walmart. What could be similar corporations? Target, Costco, right? So relative valuation is basically valuing one firm relative to similar corporations. What are some approach of relative valuation? Price to earnings, price to NAV, or price to book value, basically. NAV or book value. So going back, we learned some ratio analysis, right? Price to earnings, price to book value, price to sales, EV, EBITDA, right? Those are basically relative valuation proxies, relative valuation ratios. For preferred stock, we're gonna do dividend discount only. Make sense? Questions so far? Then let's start absolute valuation for common stock. So what we talked about so far, you receive cash from two ways, dividends, and then sell the shares in the future, right? So let's go over this example. Suppose you're thinking of buying a stock, and that stock will pay $2 dividend in 1 year, And end of 1 year, you can sell the stock at $40. You require return 20%. So don't get confused. This is the discount rate. This is the required return. And this is also cost of equity. Required rate, discount rate, cost of equity. This is information we have. What should be the value of stock or price of stock today? So you have to be careful from the definition of valuation, present value of expected cash flow. So that means what we are concerned about tomorrow, not today. If we get something today, we already received it, right? Value is depends on tomorrow. So let's look at this problem. So it's trying to tell us today, we get $2 of dividend, $14 of stock price, right? So present value today should be a function of cash flow in future, which is 14 plus 2 divided by 1.2. Same present value formula, right? Nothing new. Make sense? Present value formula. Cash flow in future divided by this survey. So value should be 1333. You can think of in terms of bond, coupon face value. Coupon face value. Make sense? So when you started time value of money, I told you only secured way to calculate is draw the timeline first. And then decide where is the cash flow. Either discount today or compound in future. That will give you present or future value. Make sense? Looks easy so far. Okay, then move on. This is one period, like you want to invest today, you want to liquidate next year. Two period example. Dividend 2 in 1 year, 2.1 in 2 years, and stock price of 1470 end of year 2. So that means 0.1 and 47, right? Right? So this will be discounted 1 year. So 2 will be discounted same. It's 1.2, then 2.1 plus 14.7, 1.2 to the power 2. Right? So if you want to do it faster calculator without memorizing the formula, so the right way, go to the cash flow technique, right? So basically on the calculator, if you go here, cash flow, CF, don't input anything zero, right? Then go for $1, $2. $1, $2, right? CO1, $2. Frequency 1. CO2, sum of this like 16.8. Frequency 1. Then calculate NPV. hit NPV, it will ask for I, right? I is 20. I think you should get that price. 1333. Right? Did you get that? 1333. Cash flow 0, 0. CO1 is 2, frequency 1. CO2 is 16.8, frequency 1. Then compute NPV for I into 20. Then get me something. Or else, use this formula, you can get the same thing. Question so far? So we are just expanding the example, same example. Year 1, 2, year 2, 2.1. Now this is no longer exist. Year 3, 2.205. And price is 15,435. So 2.205 plus 15,435. Right? If you go to financial calculator, cash flow 0 is 0. Cash flow 1, cash flow 2. This is the cash flow 3, summation of this. Cash flow 3, compute NPV, hit I equals to 20. Is the answer. Question so far? Looks easy. Easy so far, right? It should be. The stock price valuation is not really complex. So you have to understand the intuition, like how dividend is growing, how much it should grow, and what should the discount rate. It's all very complex. So now we're going to move towards a structured framework. So basically, so far dividend was given, right? In general, dividend will not be given. You have to make the assumptions. You have to estimate on those dividends. So now we will move on and think about how can we assume, how can we expect, how can we estimate future dividends. There are basically three different models or three different ways to think about future dividend. The first one is constant dividend, or you can say zero growth in dividend. It means if the corporations paid $2 last year, it will keep paying $2 for it. So $2 last year, $2, $2, $2. So you can think about 1 plus 0 growth, 1 plus 0 growth, 1 plus 0 growth, right? Constant, flat, 0 growth, right? What could be an example of this kind of dividend payment? Food stock can do so mostly. Absolutely. Fixed dividend, preferred stock. Fixed dividend, preferred stock. So we'll talk about the valuation on the next slide, how to value preferred stock. constant dividend growth. Be careful, not constant dividend, constant dividend growth. So that means forever they will follow a fixed dividend growth rate. Let's say 2%. This growth rate will constant forever. Point 0.02 0.02 square 0.02 cube. They paid 2% last year. Okay. 2% growth here from $2. Sorry, they paid $2 last year. 2% growth from $2. 2% growth from this amount, not $2. 2% growth from this amount. That's why to the power 2. Okay. 2% growth from this amount. So that's why 3. Make sense? Constant growth, not dividend payment. Constant growth. They keep grow for 2% forever. This is an example of common stock. Because if company earn more, they would love to share with the stockholder, right? Make sense? So this is constant dividend growth model. So we'll talk about these two in the next slides. Super normal growth, non-constant growth, some people say multi-stage growth. So it's trying to tell you dividend growth is not constant. So the idea is for this kind of example, corporations tend to grow by higher amount in earlier years. In earlier years. So there is no exact number like what we mean by earlier years. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, earlier years. After that, they will settle down. Because we know that corporations' life is infinity, right? So they may grow in earlier years. After that, they will settle down. So that's why in earlier years, they will grow different rates, could be 5, then 6, 8, something like that. After that, they will settle down and follow a constant growth. Make sense? So your job is to make a cutoff. Any point that how many years we are referring to earlier years? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many? So you have to find out the exact growth rate for those earlier years. How to find those growth rates, we'll not talk about in this class. It's for investment class. But for earlier years growth rate, it will be provided. Make sense? It will be provided. And then after the end of the earlier years, they will grow at a constant rate. Now, let's say for these corporations, next year they will grow 5%. And then from then, they will grow 2% forever. Make sense? So that means make sense? And then because this is my dividend 1. This is my dividend 1. From dividend 1, this is my dividend 0. Just know the terminology. It may look scary. It's not. I'm telling you, it's not scary. Know the terminology. When you jump on the examples problem, very easy. So this is basically my D0, which is not considered evaluation. We don't think about today. We think about tomorrow. This is my D1. Dividend at year 1 or year 1. So this is already my dividend one, right? So my dividend two is basically dividend one times the growth. Dividend three is basically all dividend two, which is 2, 1.05, 1.02 times 1.02, right? Or we can say in short, what? And then it will keep going forward, right? Questions of the models. Like these all models is trying to tell you how your dividend should look like tomorrow. How your dividend should look like tomorrow. Questions so far? Now let's jump on to the valuation point. And how can we value these three different models? First model, constant dividend or zero. Okay, applicable for preferred stock. Present value formula, the price formula. So basically, present value price is basically dividend one divided by this. Does it look scary? Dividend one divided by zero. Discount. Now don't get confused. For zero growth model, for preferred stock, dividend zero is basically dividend one, is basically dividend two, is basically dividend three, is basically dividend four, forever, right? Right? So if on the test or on the problem is given the company paid last year $2 and 10% discount rate, preferred stock, what should be the price? Now you may feel like, oh, it's last year, how can I get the next year? Two different ways. Next is basically D1, right? But as growth rate is zero, this will be zero, so that should be D0. So next year dividend is basically a function of last year dividend times growth. Growth information will be given. If you know the growth information, just do the basic calculation. Make sense? How to value preferred stock? Now here's the information. Expected to pay 50 cents every quarter. And the required return is 10% with quarterly compounding. What is the price? 50 cents every quarter. And the required return is 10% quarterly compounding. What is the price? So basically, price is this formula. Find out the quarterly dividend, find out the quarterly discount rate, right? This is appropriate discount rate, appropriate cash flow, right? 50 cents, 10% divided by 4, which is fine. I think 0 to 5. That is the price. Make sense? Appropriate cash flow, appropriate discount rate. Same policy from the present value formula. Appropriate cash flow, appropriate discount rate. Easy, right? Now, constant dividend growth. Constant dividend growth. So absolute value is not constant. Growth is constant, right? So to find the present value price of any stock that follows constant dividend growth, this is the formula. This is the formula. So price is basically D1 R minus G. So D1 is basically a function of D0, 1 plus G. Now let me explain some common errors you people do. The first common error, even if on the test it mentioned company will pay dividend of $5 next year, you guys make it to grow again. No. Be careful here. If it say company is decided to pay next year, that is your D1. Okay, that is your D1. So don't compound again. That will be D2. But if say company is decided to pay or company is already paid, that is your D0. Then compound and go to D1. First job, identify on the test, is D0 given or D1 given? If D0 given, compound it. If D1 given, don't compound it, just plug in here. Make sense? Second information. Sometimes you get it confused here. Because different books, different slides, different professors use different word. This is your required rate of return. This is your discount rate. This is your cost of equity. Same thing, cost of equity. Okay, same thing. Some people also use like this. RKE, RE, same thing. Discount rate, required rate of return, cost of equity. Same thing, no difference. Any confusion of this formula? If D0 is given on the test, compound. If D1 is given, just plug in. Discount rate, required return on equity, cost of equity, same thing. This is the growth rate, constant growth rate. And these two are same, okay? These two are same, constant growth, same. Same thing. Now let's do this example. So let's say if nothing mentioned on stock price, stock valuation, industry practice, annual dividend. Okay, nothing mentioned. Because on an average, most of the corporations pay dividend once a year. That's the industry practice. Some corporations pay dividend quarterly. Make sense? Suppose they just paid dividend 50 cents per share. So what do you think? Just pay D0, D1. Is it D0 or D1? Why? They paid it. It's gone, right? So our formula is price should be D0, 1 plus G, R or whatever, KE, whatever you use, minus G, right? Don't think it's divided by, okay, slash, alternative, okay? R or KE. Same thing, slash. So 0.5, 2% is the growth rate, 1.02. 15% is the required rate of return, 0.15 minus 1.2. Right? How much you got as a price? Price.
$3.92.
Okay. Anyone having different number? Good. Now let's do it by yourself. Tell me how much you got from the price. You are my student here. Done. How much you got?
I got 13.3.
Looks like sounds familiar. So dollar to D1 or D0? D1. Okay. So that means direct plot $2, right? You don't need to go again. Discount rate 20%. Growth rate 5%. Right? Okay, good job. So some more. Seeing about constant growth dividend model. Go back to present value characteristics. We know this formula for very long, right? Right? If this becomes bigger, present value should be more or less. If cash flow is more in future, assuming this is constant. If cash flow is more in future, do you think more present value today or less present value today? More, right? And then if this is constant, if discount rate is more, present value should be more or less today. This is constant. If discount rate is more, present value should be more or less. Less, right? So now if we convert this formula in the dividend discount model, just convert. Right? We already know how much company paid last year, right? We already know that, right? We cannot change that, right? What you can think of, if the company can grow well tomorrow or grow less tomorrow, that you can think of, right? Whether the company will grow well or grow less tomorrow, that you can think of. In that case, if the company grow more, price should be more today. Did you see that? Company can grow more, price should be more today. Similarly, discount rate. Company becomes more risky. Discount rate should be more, right? From the last class, we learned that for any sort of investments, we should think about the risk. If risk is more, discount rate should be more. More risky, more discount rate, and you see it? The relationship. Let's move on a little bit and talk about the final slide of constant growth model. So this is pretty easy, right? We already did that. Company expected to pay dividend of $4 next period, $4, right? So D1. Dividends are expected to go at 6%, required return 16%. So we know how to do it, right? E0 is basically D1 required rate minus G, right? D1 is given, required is 16%, right? Now, if I tell you same information, what should be the price at end of year 4? How can you get that? Growth is constant, required rate and return is constant because we know company risk. If company is similar risky, required return should be constant. And this is a constant growth model. So growth is constant. Right? Growth is constant. Then How can you get price 4?
Four times one plus 0.06, and then raise that to the four divided by 0.1.
Why?
This 0.1 is your rate on your.
Now that's fine. Why we raised it to 4? Did you guys hear to him? Like what did he say? So why we should raise it to 4?
Was 4 year.
Absolutely. So the idea is, let's say, how many additions here? From 4 additions, right? Price at 4 here. So that means this should be the formula. Make sense? We need D5, dividend 5. We know dividend 1. We know dividend 1. But we need D5 because we want the price at year 4. So basically, we are just stretching to a different time. From 0, we are just going to 4. Different time. The formula is still the same. As we increase the number here, similar we increase the number there. Over here, the thing. D5. Use the formula. That should be the price and here. Make sense? Questions, concerns, comments? All good. So this is so far for today. Next class, we will start on concept. Okay.